So as most of you guys will probably know who have been watching the channel for a minute now, would have seen that I have been constantly updating who I think Richmond should select in the 2025 AFL draft as the months have of course been going on. As it stands right now, Richmond do have the 3rd and 4th overall pick in the draft. Again, some of you guys who weren't following the trade period, might be like, why is that? The Tigers had 2 and 3. That is because, West Coast just recently signed, they let Oscar Allen walk, to Brisbane, where he of course signed there on a big enough contract that actually gave the Eagles pick number 2 in compensation. So because the Eagles now have 1 and 2, that moves Richmond back to 3 and 4. Again, every kind of month, I feel like when I make one of these videos, my thoughts and opinions overall change on who Richmond should draft. Whether it's, what I think the Tigers need, best available, but of course, what we're kind of hearing around the internet. There's been a lot of players jump up in the mock draft rankings, a lot of players fall down, and I definitely feel like I have enough knowledge, I reckon, to kind of guess who I think Richmond might take at 3 and 4. Of course, that is what the Tigers have at the time making this video. There have been rumors that the Tigers may be doing a pick swap where they trade like a pick 4 to an Essendon for, one of Essendon's picks and whatever else. Again, I don't think that's going to happen. Blair Hartley also mentioned in interviews it would have to take like a whole entire mountain to move for the Tigers to trade away from, their positions of 3 and 4. So I think it's 95% likely this is what the Tigers are going to walk into the 2025 draft with. Again, I have some honorable mentions I want to mention before I do get into who I think the Tigers should select. For a long time, I think the Tigers should have gone with a Sam Grill type, and I think you guys are going to be quite surprised to hear that I don't actually have the Tigers selecting him with 3 and 4. Again, don't get me wrong, I still think it's a massive chance that is the direction the Tigers go with, and I would be extremely happy if they did. I think he's going to be a great player and would honestly really fit what the Tigers need. But just from the outside source, I don't know if they're going to go in that direction. But obviously, he's my honorable mention outside of the 2 guys I'm going to talk about in a second. For those of you who don't know Sam Grill, he's a 183 centimeter inside midfielder who recently just played for the Oakley Chargers. He also played a couple games with Richmond's VFL, where he actually got moved to the half-back line and played really well. Like, he was insane off half-back for the Tigers. His burst from the back line and his ball use was really nice. Looks like a complete player when it does come to that. His midfield game, which I think the Tigers would more so look for him to do if they were to draft him, is similar to what a Max Holmes is right now, or a younger Chris Judd, having that really good burst from the inside mid, very quick two-way player as well. I think the Tigers are very much going to look at him. But yeah, I'm hearing that the other 2 guys that I'm going to talk about may be where the Tigers' direction is going to go. Now, of course, this is a clip from my official 2025 AFL mock draft. If you haven't gone and already checked that out, I highly recommend it. That way you can see who I have all the other teams taking. In case you were like, why didn't Richmond, of course, take Cooper Duff-Tytler with this pick, or why didn't I have them selecting him? You can actually see, if you watch that video, that I have him going to the Eagles. Again, highly recommend you guys go and check out that full video, which should be uploaded a couple videos before this one. But yeah, without further ado, here's who I think the Tigers should select with the 3rd and 4th overall pick in the 2025 AFL draft. I do have Richmond now, finally a team other than the Eagles. I do have the Richmond Tigers selecting Sullivan Roby, who is the 6th highest ranked player in this draft. A guy who is very new to some of you. A bloke who, like, from what I've heard, I know a guy who plays in under 18s, and when Sullivan Roby has come on the scene, he can confirm to me this guy's the real deal and is an absolute great player. He's a bloke who wasn't getting a game like 10 games ago, came in, dominated straight away, played finals and was nearly the best player in the premiership winning team. a midfield slash forward who's 192, 193 centimeters tall, with Cal Toomey actually saying the bolter of this year's pack is firmly in the best group of prospects, and it has come from nowhere. After being cut from the Dandenong Stingray squad, Roby burst onto the scene mid-year with the Eastern Rangers. At first, he was a connector at half forward who marked on the lead and was effective around goal. But his past month, Roby has exploded to be a midfielder with burst, size and strength, having amassed 40 disposals and 3 goals against Western Jets and 2 goals and 25 disposals against the Calder Cannons the following week. In the grand final last weekend, which was a little bit ago now, he played predominantly forward and booted 4 goals to show his class in attack. Roby was a lot of clubs' best kept secret, but it's just kept rising and is now well in contention inside the top 10 picks, having been elevated to the National Draft Combine. I mean, yeah, those stats speak for themselves. 4 goals in the freaking grand final, multiple goals in a 40 disposal week, a couple weeks before that. He's the real deal. Again, I know someone who's played on him that says he's the real deal and is a pain in the ass to go up against. He will be a guy I think Richmond will really look at, because I think Richmond desperately need a high half forward, especially one of his size. You know, that Will Hayward, Cam Rayner type of prototype of a player. The 3rd, 4th tall who can move up and down the ground. I think Sullivan Roby can do that. He can also play midfield, which Richmond are obviously looking to boost. I think it's a great decision by them, and I think it's where they'll go. With the 6th overall pick, though, I have Richmond selecting Dylan Patterson, but will get matched by the Gold Coast Suns, who is ranked 4th. Dylan Patterson, another Gold Coast Academy player, like they just keep dominating. It's 183 centimeter midfielder slash defender. The Rocket is the most exciting player in this year's pool. When he's got the ball, it's a must watch. You aren't sure exactly what's coming next with Patterson, because he sometimes makes it up on the go and backs himself with his pure speed and dash. But beyond that, the Suns Academy player understands the game well, sees options, and he can be really important in how to set up the team's attack from halfback or through the midfield. Patterson is dynamic in every sense. The Gold Coast Suns as well, they don't really have too many holes on their team. But one thing is, I think they may be looking for another wing. And Dylan Patterson can play wing. You know, I think Touk Miller will play a lot of wing this year as well. But Patterson can play wing. He can play halfback. A guy who I genuinely think could be in Gold Coast Best 23 coming up as well. It's kind of crazy to think they've got him, Yulan, Petrarca, and Jamara, who could all come straight into that round 23 side. Yeah, they're building big and good things at Gold Coast. With pick number 7, though, I've got Richmond selecting Sam Cumming, who is ranked number 15. The first really big bolter, I think, of this year's draft is Cumming. Of course, 186 centimeter midfield slash half forward. When talking about the Tigers earlier as well, I did mention that I think they'll be looking for a new high half forward, as well as looking for midfield depth. The reality is that Richmond really just don't have a high half forward in general. Like, you see a lot of great teams and they all have 2 or 3 elite, you know, forwards who can do that role. Like Brisbane had Cam Rayner and Callum Archie, and even when they were playing with the 3 talls down there, Logan Morris was like that type of role, moving up the ground when they had Big O and what's the other dude's name? Ty Gallop. When Ty Gallop and the Big O were playing as the deep forwards, Logan Morris would play as that player as well. I think the Tigers will be looking at that. Their forward line last year, you saw, just got to be way too small. They were playing 4 small forwards at one stage, and I don't think that's where the modern game is going. I think modern teams like to have like 2 small forwards and those 2 high half forwards to maybe play with the 2 key forwards. I feel like that's where the, you know, game is kind of trending, and even that high half forward can kind of be a hybrid of a key forward some teams have, like that Logan Morris. I think the Tigers need to look at that, because the only guy they've got I can think of who can maybe play that role is Sam Lawler, and Sam Lawler will definitely play that role, and he did for a lot of this year. But I think Sam Lawler imagines himself being a midfielder going forward, who probably plays 70% midfield, 30% forward type thing. Very similar to Dusty for a lot of his prime. I think that's what they're going to try and do with Lawler. So if Lawler's doing that and only playing 30% as that forward, you don't have anyone else down there. So I think a Sullivan Roby and a Sam Cumming could both be really good at that. Sam Cumming as well is a guy who I think can play a bit of wing, which the Tigers may also be looking at. When it does, describe him, it says that Cumming's season was cut short at the end by a shoulder injury, which came after perhaps his best block of form for this season. He was a consistent member of South Australia's title-winning team, and his size as a midfielder/forward has excited clubs, given he can also mark well for a player his size. 21 disposal and 3-goal game against North Adelaide was one of his best this season. So yeah, I think the Tigers will either look at him here or Sam Grill. But honestly, the Tigers, they do need some forward midfield rotation, because that's another thing Brisbane can do. Like a player like Cam Rayner can jump in the midfield if needed. Cal Archie was playing on the wing as well. I think the Tigers may look at that, bring in a guy like Cumming who can play high half forward, can maybe play in the midfield but also play on the wing. Sullivan Roby, high half forward, a deep option as well, who can play in the midfield. I think it's what the Tigers could be looking at here, and it's why I've got them taking Cumming. But I wouldn't be surprised if they took Grill to get some, burst from the stoppage in there too. So we'll have to see how that one does all unfold. Of course, I'd very much like to hear all of your thoughts and opinions on this down below. Do you guys like my 2025 AFL mock draft? Maybe even make 11 and 20 coming soon. We'll have to definitely wait and see, but a lot of effort put into this video for sure. So we'll see if I get some time. Again, don't forget to comment your thoughts and opinions down below to let me know if you enjoyed it and if you agree with what I had to say. Leave a like to let me know you enjoyed it. Subscribe to the channel for all latest sports content news. My gaming/movie channel will also be linked down below, as well as my Instagram. Go check them all out. But yeah, as I was saying, please make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and comment. And I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.